Great, thank you. Item 15, Harewood, Breens.
Oh, excluding the floodlights? No, we're not excluding.
So we-
Let's do 15, yeah?
Oh, we're not going to do this one because Aaron's here.
We have to do errands.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so moving now to item 16, the Harewood Gardiners Breens funding options. So if we can have staff to the table for this one, please. Thank you. Now the options are made clear in the paper. Is there any comment from staff? And then we'll move to questions.
No, I think if it's clear in the report, then I'm happy to leave it for questions.
All right, let's move straight to questions. Do we have any questions for staff? Aaron, did you have any questions?
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions first?
Are there any other questions? Okay, Sam.
Thank you. I just wondered if you could talk me through the NZTA subsidy. So obviously we've got the option of either pulling the cycleway forward or doing it as a standalone project. But in the standalone project, we talk about it obviously not attracting a subsidy, but in the bringing forward and including the traffic lights into the cycleway, it would attract a subsidy. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So what's the? I just don't understand the rationale as to why it could be excluded in one and not in the other.
It's the rationale for doing the job. The inclusion of traffic lights are a viable option at an intersection within the cycleway.
Yeah.
Putting this traffic lights in the we would need, as a standalone project, needs to stand up with a benefit cost ratio in its own right. So the benefit cost ratio then stacks up as part of a wider cycleway, if that makes sense. Have I explained that terribly?
Yes. I guess probably the assurance I'm trying to get at is if we did, if we proceed today in terms of going down the line of having the traffic lights as part of the cycleway, would NZTA get to a point down the path where they say, actually, we're not subsidising that portion because they don't consider it the most necessary solution for that intersection?
I don't believe that. I don't think it's always possible, but I don't believe it's a big risk. We have used signals as options in cycleways in other parts of the city.
Yeah, and they have indicated that at the moment that if it's included as part of the MCR, it would be subsidised.
It would be, okay. And we're confident that we would get that NZTA subsidy. Like I know we've had challenges with other stuff and delays.
Yes. No. Yeah. We're confident. They're very supportive of the wider program.
Okay, and if it's okay, Andrew, just another.
Yep, thank you.
So in terms of the MCR, I mean, the community board obviously has been in favour of pushing that out for some time. Is there a risk that when we go out for consultation over that, that we get a potential uproar and then we have to go and reassess where that cycleway goes, or is that already locked in terms of Harewood Road?
It's locked in, isn't it?
So we have a preferred route, but we haven't briefed committee or community boards yet on that preferred route.
Yeah.
Harewood Road is the most direct route between the start and end point.
Okay, so if during the consultation period that was to change, and I don't want to suggest the avenue over because that's in my ward, but would there be a risk that we don't get traffic lights at all?
So if the cycleway changed, the council always has the option of then putting the intersection back as an individual project, but it would not obviously then attract the NZTA subsidy.
Yeah, so we'd need to redo the work on it.
Correct.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
All right, Tim, Phil and Pauline. Tim.
Thank you. Under 4.16, other projects may need to be deferred to release sufficient funds in the annual plan for this project. So this intersection isn't in the top 20, let alone the top 100 of the most dangerous intersections in our city. Is that correct, as it says in the report?
That is correct. Based on the on the rolling 5 years, it's dropped out of the top 100.
Okay, so do we have an idea of, in that top 20 most dangerous in the other parts of the city, which one of those may be, so we don't know, but something has to move to allow this to happen.
Something may have to move. If we want to, what we were trying to indicate in that is that there are other higher risk intersections. We've talked this through before.
Yep.
As a council, you could choose to fund it in its own right and leave it there in its own right, but it is not addressing the safety issue that we've got across the city for the other intersections. And if we have to balance out, we may have to have that conversation, and that would be part of long-term plan conversation probably.
So at the moment, as this is put forward, we're looking at an increase of 1.2 million, is that correct? But the NZTA subsidy will cut that down to 600, is that right?
Correct.
For the cycleway section, yeah.
But the only way to get the lights is to do and the subsidy, sorry, is to do the cycleway.
Yeah.
So if we did the intersection on its own, there'd be obviously no subsidy.
Correct.
Okay.
So on its own, the VCR for the intersection is 0.1, which
Yep.
is well under the threshold.
Yeah, thank you.
Phil?
Thank you, guys. Just roughly, this whole cycleway thing from start to finish, how much is that? I've got a number of 20 million in my head. Is that where I'm?
It's about 18, I think.
Yeah, it is in there somewhere.
Yeah, 3.16. Oh, actually, that's something I should have said at the start. My apologies. There's an error, and that was my error. The numbers in there are too high. We put the extra 1.2 million in twice. I put the extra 1.2 million in twice. Sam has an updated table that covers off 3.16. It should have gone round so the numbers are slightly down.
So it's
But
18.2 million is the
We'll
total
say
cost.
20 for round figures. So, of which half will be paid for by
The government.
transit? Right. So we're looking at spending 10 million now by bringing it forward. Now, when we bring it forward, and something else dips out, it's a cycleway that dips out, or is it?
We don't need to. Nothing needs to dip out to bring this forward. It's already part of the annual plan. It's just delivering it earlier.
But we're bringing the spending
long-term plan.
forward earlier.
Yes.
So does that? Nothing dips out. Okay. Oh,
Nothing
that's
else has to change in the long-term plan.
cool. So, and just following through what you said, if it's $10 million and it's going to take 18 months to design it and maybe another 12 months to implement it,
Yep.
are we not better just to spend 1.2 million on the intersection now and get it more or less in 8 or 10 months' time? We get it a lot
It'll
quicker.
still take us 18
Just the intersection.
just to do the intersection. We've still got 12 months of design work to do.
Mm-hmm.
We'd still have to understand whether there's any property purchase. You have to get through all that. There's all sorts of.
Okay.
There's
Thank
still
you.
the same amount of design work to do, even though it's different scale.
Thank you.
Pauline and then Anne. Pauline.
A little process question, because it was the community board that pushed the cycleway out originally, and the council at the time respected that decision, so left it out, and I think it was a vote, because a lot of councillors did not want to push it out. Does that mean that if we make this decision today, that we are overriding a community board decision, and should it go back to the board?
My understanding, it was community board feedback as part of the long-term plan. The long-term
Yes, it
plan
was.
vote was to put it out there. This is part of the annual plan discussion. You asked us to come back with options.
Yeah, I know, it probably might not be a question for you, but it's an interesting one, isn't it, when we're trying to balance community board
Yeah.
decisions,
I
but
mean-
whether,
There is always an option to leave it out,
that's right, because that's what
but
the
it
community
means you
board
got your
wanted.
lights and do it as part of the cycleway in the
Into-
original timeframes.
In the original timeframe, yeah, because that's what the board wanted.
But
So it's the
there
board
won't be
that's in a
lights there
difficult
for
situation.
5 or 6 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anne and then Mike. Anne.
Thanks for all the work that you've done on this. And I remember that we've talked about this quite a lot, I remember there was a discussion about the fact that the traffic lights, just putting traffic lights in, could have unintended consequences in terms of safety for that whole passageway, that whole roadway through there. Can you explain what they could be? Are you able to?
We can do that.
So if we
Yes.
just put traffic lights there.
Yeah, so if we put traffic lights at the moment, Harewood Road has no delay. So Harewood Road is the primary road, so it's the side roads that have all delay. As soon as we put traffic lights in there, we will have significant delay on Harewood Road, because every 76 seconds we will be stopping the Harewood Road for approximately half of that time. We do expect to see an increase in those rear end collisions, because at the moment traffic doesn't have to stop. We also do expect to see significant congestion as a result. And that's just because there's delay. At the moment traffic doesn't have to stop. You will see some delay on Harewood Road.
We also anticipate that there could be an issue with accident migration down to the Breens Wairaki corner. So that was another safety issue that was raised.
So can I follow that on with a question? How does putting the traffic lights with the cycleway mitigate some of those things?
Doesn't change them, I'm afraid.
No, it's still...
But the council made the decision in principle to support the lights. So we've come back to you today with a paper giving you options of how to fund it.
Right, okay, cool. Okay, gotcha.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Look, I think it's important just to clarify actually the process, how it happened. Through the long-term plan, it was actually proposed to put it out to around where it is now. This actual cycleway has 2 community boards involved. The Harewood Community Board wanted it pushed out even further, and the Papanui Community Board, which it goes through, didn't want it pushed out further, wanted it actually closer. And through the council decision, it stayed at that date that was proposed in the long-term plan. And with the thought that obviously with the TFAR, it may come forward again, which didn't happen because of some of the projects up in the North Island taking the money away. But my question, I guess, is around the fact that obviously we're going through, at some stage there'll be another round of funding with the new GPS and etc. So there's potential actually, although we know we're going to get 51%, that they could try and look at going back up to 75% like they wanted to happen with the last round.
There is potential. It depends on what the new GPS announcements are.
Yep.
The cycling.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions? Sam? Oh, yeah. I'll just... So, Aaron, I'll come to you in just a moment. I've got a couple of questions myself first, and I'll come right to you. So, thinking in terms of, the answer to Anne's question about the benefits of the traffic lights for the cycleway, I guess we're saying now in this regard, versus the congestion and the possible migration of accident incidents further down the road to another junction. Is the driver for the suggestion that we would put the traffic lights in the previous council decision in principle, or is there technical traffic engineer advice that supports putting the traffic lights in here as a part of the cycleway, or would the cycleway in fact be just as safe without the traffic lights?
The initial schemes that were done for the cycleway, the initial schemes in the scheme workup that we have done for the cycleway came up with options that were presented to the community previously. So in the previous round of consultation, we presented an option that reduced the movements across this intersection. There was an idea to do that. Putting lights in at an intersection such as this intersection is an option for a cycleway to get people across. It causes delays to cyclists as well, and as Brendan alluded to before, it causes delays in that main corridor along Harewood Road. So there's pros and cons for all of it. It's an option and a way to do it. The council has very clearly said that you are supporting in principle the introduction of lights at this intersection in response to the concerns raised from the community.
And you wouldn't be making the recommendations, you are as staff, if this wasn't a workable solution?
It's definitely a workable solution.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. And one further question from me, and then Sarah, I'll come to you, and then I'll come to Aaron. just to clarify, if the cycleway was moved as a result of consultation on the cycleway, and there has been some suggestion that the way to get a cycleway through this part of town is not this route but a different route, that would then mean that the traffic lights wouldn't be, as a result of this decision, there would then remain no traffic lights at this junction because the traffic lights are part of the cycleway. It would require a further decision of council to look at this junction again in the context of no cycleway going along this road. In order to put traffic lights there.
We'd need to come back to you with more options, yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Assuming the
Just-
staff recommendations approved today, the only way that traffic lights will be put at this intersection would be as a part of the cycleway.
Correct.
And just to be clear, the start and end points of this cycleway are the railway crossing at Harewood Road and the underpass at the top end of Harewood Road that goes under Johns Road. It's fairly... I'm not trying to predetermine the decision, but it's fairly logical.
It would be difficult to find a route to connect
Difficult to
those
find a
points that was
different route.
logical that didn't go through this intersection.
And I know there's a
I
lot
hear
of
what you're saying.
discussion about whether it's the right route or not, but that is where the underpass is on Johns Road, and it does link to the business park very well, and there's a lot of people cycling out to the business park.
All right, that's all helpful commentary. Sarah?
Thank you. When we did make the previous decision in principle on the traffic lights, and we asked this work to be done, if we did, it was in the report, but it was like one of those 1,000-page agendas and things, and when it was raised during the meeting, what wasn't addressed was that actually traffic lights make this intersection less safe than it currently is, and also migrate accidents potentially to other intersections. So during the cycleway, if we go ahead with this, during the cycleway consultation, is there an opportunity, if council wanted to readdress the safest option through?
So to go back a couple of points, Councillor, I think what we said in the report, if I remember correctly, was they don't necessarily make it safer. Traffic lights don't necessarily make it safer, and they don't necessarily address the safety issues that the community had raised. They cause different types of accidents.
Yeah.
And yes, we had an independent report from Abley that said it's not
The least-
as safe
yeah.
as actually restricting movements. Whether we would go through that, look, I don't know what the form of the signalised intersection would look like as a
That's
result of the cycleway. So I think we're
Okay.
trying to preempt questions that I can't really answer. We've still got to do the design and figure it out. If it inherently creates something that is inherently unsafe, we will bring that back to you and have that conversation.
Thank you. No further questions within the room. Aaron, let's move to you for any questions that you might have.
Maybe a couple. The first one being a follow-on from Sam's one earlier on around the NZTA funding for a set of traffic lights at that intersection. So the belief is that NZTA wouldn't fund them if there was just traffic lights, but if they were part of the cycleway, they would. But in the staff's design, they wouldn't have traffic lights, that's why we're adding this amount of money. So why would NZTA fund them if they wouldn't be part of the design?
So NZTA requires an overall benefit-cost ratio to be addressed and a value for money equation to be addressed. The issue is that for the wider project we have a really solid benefit-cost ratio for the cycleway overall, even with the additional cost of putting lights in at this intersection. What happened when we were doing we did some high-level assessments of what we thought the facilities would look like when we assessed the overall cost of the program to put into the long-term plan, and there wasn't an assumption at that time, back at the long-term plan time, that lights would go in. Hence we've asked for the additional budget to come in to address the lights at this intersection. Does that answer your question, councillor?
Kind of. It would suggest to me that NZTA don't look that closely at the details if they'd let it go through on one but not the other.
Well, they're looking at the overall cost benefit of the project in its own right. And because the cost benefit
Right.
is set up on the whole project, not just portions of the project.
Okay, that explains it. But now, getting down to that being the preferred route, I wasn't aware that that was the selected preferred route yet. It's the route that's been put up and it's been talked about. But so that is confirmed now. That's the preferred route.
No, it is the indicative route. It is the indicative route between the start and end point of that facility. But we have yet to go out to community consultation on any of it. But we can get that going reasonably quickly.
Because our board had brought a number of suggestions around that not being the route, that the route from the airport to town should be Memorial Ave because it's 2 kilometres shorter than going the Harewood Road route, which on a bike, 2 k's is, I don't know, a few calories.
It's not just about going, and I think it's not about actually passengers on planes travelling to the airport. It's actually about workers and people working out in the business park out there in particular. So it's about who our audience is that we're trying to attract.
Okay, and so can we bring this forward and do this like this prior to it going out to consultation? Because this looks like we're setting up this from the job. So that's okay to do that? And then if the public come back and say, no, we don't want that there, then we'd just go back to trying to fund the traffic lights another way.
Yes.
Okay, and what would the timeline for that be?
So just to clarify, that last question seemed to be in 2 parts. The first question was, would we go ahead and build the lights first? And the second was, this is what I heard, and I may be wrong, and then the second part was, so prior to consultation, and the second part was, if the cycleway doesn't end up going there, we would need to come back and do the lights as a separate, there will be a separate question about whether we do the lights there. But the first part of the question, presumably we wouldn't be putting the lights in before we'd consulted on the cycleway and decided that was the preferred route.
And even if we put the lights in as a separate project, we still have to do the design. We would still have to do an assessment as to whether there was any additional consultation we needed to do, because they were very high-level schemes that we now to have the conversation with the community. It might be that we don't, but we'd still have to do an assessment. I'm not prepared to put my hand in my heart today and say we wouldn't definitely have to go out again.
And that would require a separate decision of council if the cycleway didn't go through there, of course.
Yep, absolutely.
Aaron, anything further?
No, and that wasn't right. You did hear it wrong, Andrew. That wasn't my question, but I would be happy to second your motion of putting the lights in first and then working on the cycleway.
It certainly wasn't a motion, it was a point of clarification, but that's fine.
I'm happy to move the staff recommendation.
All right. Sam, did you have another question?
One on that further consultation, because under 4.1.5 it says that the second option, there would need to be no further consultation with the community. So are we comfortable with what's in the report? Or?
Yep.
So we wouldn't
It
need
would
to go
only
out.
be if there was something major changed off what we
Cool.
designed. Sorry.
No, that's right. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Anne, question? You're going to second the motion that's been moved by the Mayor, so the staff recommendation. So we've got this moved and seconded, so it's on the table. Is there any debate? Melanie?
There's a few things, some of it repeating, but so don't necessarily agree with prioritising an intersection for pedestrian safety that is of less need than 100 other intersections at least through the city, but that's a decision already made. Particularly, if, based on what the staff said about an increase in the number of potential rear-end collisions and accident migration to other sites, it's not necessarily safe. However, it makes sense with part one of the recommendation to combine projects to save staff time, spending twice as much time on the design, to save ratepayers money to obviously attract the NZTA subsidy for the intersection, and to also reduce the length of time with roadworks interference on Harewood Road, because otherwise you'd get it twice. However, with part two, I've got a concern about moving it forward. Not that I don't support cycleways, because I do, but about the additional rates increase over a period where we're going to probably have rates increases due to stadium costs. So I would support part one, but not two.
Yeah.
Yep, I can put them separately. Sam?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I won't be supporting this today, and I'll just signal my intent to foreshadow the standalone project as a matter of process. The thing with this, and I'm sort of stuck in a rock and a hard place, because I do completely get the fact that we get this NZTA subsidy for this down the line. But the reality is all we're doing today is pushing the traffic lights further and further away from the community who want them. And it just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, I think the fact is, as a community board and then as a council, for the last couple of years, we've gone out, we've done all the consultation work, and we're literally no better off today than we were 2 years ago. And I just really, sympathise with the residents of Harewood that we've again pushed this out. So I just can't support this today, and again signal my intent to foreshadow doing it as a standalone project.
All right, so in the event that the motion on the table is lost, we'll come to your foreshadowed motion. I've now got Sarah and then Mike.
Thank you. For me, this is not about NZTA subsidy per se. It's about an intersection that doesn't warrant work any sooner than 100 others that are more dangerous. And I think that having this as a standalone project ahead of more dangerous ones across the city means that we leave our residents in other parts of the city at a higher risk than necessary. And I think that's poor governance from us would be poor governance from us as city councillors rather than ward councillors, which is what we swear to do when we do our roads. So I think that's the key thing for me here. I think that having a cycleway brought forward actually reduces rates in the long term. It's cheaper to build them. The sooner we do it, we're more likely to get better subsidy rates the sooner we do it. And so doing it that way is really good, and then we get all of the benefits of lower traffic on the roads and those kind of things sooner as well. But for us to put one intersection ahead of others when it's not warranted by any evidence whatsoever is really poor governance. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike and then Anne.
I support both the recommendations up there, and there's no way I could support actually the foreshadowed one, because it just doesn't quite make sense to do it as a standalone when we know actually it would not get any NZTA funding and is actually not even in the top 100 of the dangerous intersections in Christchurch, and I'm sure there would be a lot more important intersections that would have to be upgraded before that one would happen, probably including some in the Harewood ward itself. I think it's just a no-brainer when you've got the ability to actually get subsidies, minimum of 51%, potentially more, to be able to actually do these projects together. It's actually, if we're talking about ratepayers' dollars, we should be looking at any opportunity we can to actually save it, instead of doing one project now with no subsidy and then another project a few years down the track with a subsidy. So I'll be supporting both.
Anne.
We are all motivated by wanting to make journeys to school safer for our young people throughout the city, and we can achieve this the critical result of a safe crossing at the Breens, this terrible intersection, which this community has been crying out for many years, without having to sacrifice the safety of the other children throughout the city, because that's what would happen if we put a standalone traffic light. Traffic lights, that money would have to be found from somewhere else, and it would be found by not doing the other safety things that we want to have happen, so that all the children in the city are going to have safer journeys to school. So this option ensures that the crossing can be, as a part of a major cycleway project, will achieve some funding from NZTA, a substantial amount of funding from NZTA, so we can have the traffic lights there without having to take money allocated to other projects ensuring safe journeys. So I will be voting in support of the officer's recommendations to incorporate the signalisation of this intersection, and that the timing of this MCR be brought forward to reduce the length of time this community will have to wait to navigate this dangerous crossing.
Tim?
Thank you, Lord. I commend Councillor Kewen for his ongoing and dogged determination to get this intersection happening, and I do praise him for that. But it's not on the top 100. It's not even on the top 20. And I'm looking at my community, the Braden Cashmere community, and the others are connected to it, and there is a rising concern from all our residents about the growing incidents between pedestrians, cyclists and motor vehicles. And I cannot support anything that is going to jump the list by 100. It's ridiculous. And I don't think it's the best way to go forward with this. I would love to be able to sit there and say, with a definite outcome, what can be funded and when. But it seems to be a bit of a juggle with NZTA, and we can't control that. And our staff do an outstanding job juggling those balls. But for me, looking at my community and those that are around it, such as Westmoreland, Spraydon, the Apawa, etc., I just can't see how we can jump forward so much just because one is getting more media coverage than the other through dogged determination. I would like to see the top 20, I'd like to see the top 100. But I think in the big picture of things, as a city and a city council, we've actually got to send, as elected members, if we want to do this kind of thing and we see the growing problem, then I think we've got to send a signal to our chief executive and our staff to say, actually, we may need to change the focus of what we are wanting to look at. And that is a direction that the elected members have to do. And at the moment, I don't see it. I'm sending a signal that I will be pushing for communities to have a better voice about the maintenance, the safety upkeep and the programs within these built-up communities rather than new stuff. So, yeah.
I support bringing the cycleway forward. Means that we can get the benefits of it earlier. I support putting the traffic lights in the context of the cycleway if it makes the intersection safer. And we've heard that staff wouldn't be recommending that if they didn't see some benefit in the traffic lights. I certainly do not support putting the traffic lights in as a standalone solution at this intersection when there are a large number of other intersections in other parts of the city that would benefit from attention first. It seems absurd that we would leapfrog this intersection above others when there are others that are more dangerous and that would benefit from intervention more than this one would. But I'm comfortable with the staff recommendation, very happy to support that today. If we get as far as the foreshadowed motion, I certainly won't be supporting the traffic lights as a standalone solution. Yanni, and then Aaron, I'll come to you after that. I'm assuming that you'll want to speak.
Yeah, thank you.
Pauline as well.
So I want to support the local community board, and although we don't have a clear recommendation from them, it's my sense that they want the traffic light rather than the cycleway brought forward. And, I just want to remind councillors on a few things. We often put intersections in areas that are not dangerous, that often jump the queue because we've got growth. There's a whole bunch of traffic lights that we put into the city based on growth that have nothing to do with safety, but have to do with design of a neighbourhood. So I actually have no problem with a local community board saying to us, this is a priority. I argued previously in the LTP that we should be giving each community board, say, $10 million each every year to allocate to the projects that are important to them and their local area with community consultation and engagement. I think that we get around this debate we seem to have every time that the community board comes and wants something. Sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. For my community board, for example, we had one of the intersections that is in the top 10 most dangerous in terms of incidences and etc. And that got substituted for a few bus seats and a bus shelter outside Eastgate Mall. So, that community board asked for it and council agreed. The council didn't turn around and say to that community board, no, sorry, that's one of the most dangerous ones and we think it needs to be fixed. They listened to the community board and they made the decision accordingly. So, I think we do need to be consistent here. And in my view, actually, we've put parts of cycleways in all across the city. We've got areas where we are putting infrastructure in for cycleways, and I can't see any problem other than NZTA of going and saying, this is a likely route for the cycleway. We want some support to put in some safety improvements for pedestrians and cyclists as part of the signalisation. That just speaks to our relationship with NZTA and getting that resolved, rather than having to defer this for further and further and further and saying we have to do the whole thing at once.
Thank you. Pauline.
Yeah, look, I was really disappointed when the community board pushed out the cycleway in the annual plan, and I voted against that at the time. And I also preferred the previous design where the median strip was in there and that we were putting lights in only for the cycleways and the pedestrians. However, I do want to commend staff for coming up with this option, which is because they listened to the community who did not want the road blocked off. Staff have now come back with an option that's actually going to work with both requests. And I think it's going to be a win-win. It's a win in my view because it actually is going to see the cycleway brought forward again where it should have been all the time. And for me, it's every route that's completed increases the benefit of the rest of the MCRs, and the feedback we're getting is becoming more and more positive. Every day you hear people saying how fantastic they are, and to have this cycleway done and this intersection done as a result so people can ride right through to that business park up there under the Johns Road safely is going to be really incredible. I could have got it wrong, but I thought the time frame for the standalone and this option was the same at 18 months. So I don't know if Sam's right or I'm right there. So I don't see that it's a valid reason to vote for the standalone option at all, which is probably going to have a higher rates impact. So as I said, I did prefer the original design, but this is a compromise, which is also going to work, and staff have given us comfort that it is one that will work. So on that note, I'm going to support this today.
Thank you. Aaron, I'll come to you.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. My thought is I'll support Sam's option. I'm more than happy to put forward a project from within my ward, which is pretty much the same sort of cost that no one's asked for, that we will do that'll cover the funding for it, so there'll be zero rates impact, so the money's already there to do it, and so that'll be why I support Sam's suggestion to do it as a standalone project as quickly as possible. This is what the public in my ward had asked for overwhelmingly. It's certainly a lot more submitted on those traffic lights than submitted on the entire annual plan last year. So are we a council that listens to the people? We will see. NZTA haven't said no to this project either, so we should be asking them, write a really good strong case to why they should pay for half of the intersection upgrade, and hopefully they would support it. Certainly the local MP does, so we would have their endorsement for our NZTA submission as well. So my preference, and I would ask my fellow councillors to listen to the people of my ward that have overwhelmingly spoken and asked for those traffic lights. If that is the case and the traffic lights are brought forward, let's just make sure the design does not exclude the cycleway, because then if the cycleway is coming through and the people of my ward want the cycleway, I will be supporting that as well at that time.
Thank you. Leanne, as the mover, I'll come to you to close the debate.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's been a good debate. It's set out the issues. I think staff are to be congratulated for coming back with an option that actually enables the decision to be mutually agreeable, in the sense that it ties in with the ability to get NZTA funding. But I think that the focus of the debate has been about the safety issue, which is quite rightly so. As a standalone project, it doesn't stack up. The BCR isn't high enough. We know that NZTA will not fund it. So it doesn't matter how much bunting you put around it, how many bows and ribbons you put around it. There's no funding from NZTA for this project if it's standalone. So to get it built into an intersection that's part of the major cycleway route in the same time frame, it actually resolves one of the other issues, which is that if we had closed off the median strip, then you would have actually had to have put in pedestrianised crossing for the kids that are going to school. So I actually think that the traffic lights in conjunction with the major cycleway route, if that can compress the number of lanes that are coming down there, then that's going to stop what happens at the moment. And that's why the intersection is not a happy intersection. I certainly wouldn't try and cross it if I were given a choice. And a lot of people don't. They just literally turn left on one side of the road into Harewood Road, because it is very difficult to traverse 4 lanes, as we all know. I mean, I think we even drove down there in one of the buses with the community board to have a look at it. So it's not an easy intersection to traverse. This enables the development of the major cycleway route, which actually makes good sense because it's connecting one end of Harewood Road with the other. The underpass is already built under Johns Road, and people who think that it's sensible to put cyclists down Memorial Ave, then look at how they would traverse the Johns Road intersection even with the overpass. It still is an incredibly dangerous intersection with a lot of traffic, a lot of tourists who get onto the motorway from the airport, literally going north and south in relatively frequent movements. I just think that it's an area to keep cyclists away from as much as possible. So I think this staff have really gone away and done a good thing. I do worry about the impact on Wairaki Road and Breens Road, because this does bump that problem, but I think that it's almost an inevitable consequence of putting even pedestrianised lights down there. There is a school down Breens Road, and I think it's important for us to take that into account. So I would be concerned that we would end up with no advance at all and go back to zero with the foreshadowed resolution, which is why I'm happy to support the staff recommendations.
Thank you. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, you wanted them put separately, didn't you? So I'll put resolution 1. All those in favour say aye. And resolution 2. All those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry. Okay, so
Try again.
it hasn't. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that again. Take 2. Okay. Resolution 1. All those in favour say aye. Against?
No.
So, okay. So let's have that recorded. So the noes are raising their hands.
It's 5 or 6.
Yep.
And we got Phil.
And Phil. So we've got Tim, Phil, Sam, Catherine, Yanni, James, Goff and Aaron voted against. That's carried. Yep, so resolution 1 is carried. Resolution 2, all those in favour say aye. Let's have a division. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's have a formal division.
So this is just for resolution 1.
Yep.
Councillor Keown,
No.
Councillor McLennan,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
No.
Councillor Davidson, Councillor Galloway, Councillor Scandrett, Councillor Chew, Councillor Coker, Councillor Cotter,
Yes.
Councillor Chen,
Yes.
the Mayor, Councillor Templeton, Councillor Major, Councillor Turner,
Yes.
Councillor Johansson, Councillor Jones isn't here, and Councillor Goff.
No.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for yes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for no.
So that's carried.
That's carried.
So now we move to resolution 2. All those in favour say aye. Those against? So can we have a division on that one again?
For resolution 2, councillor Templeton,
Yes.
councillor McLennan, councillor MacDonald, councillor Johansson, councillor Galloway, councillor Daniels isn't here, councillor Coker, councillor Chen,
Yes.
the mayor, councillor Scandrett, councillor Major, councillor Keown, Aaron,
No.
councillor,
No.
councillor Goff, councillor Davidson, councillor Cotter,
Yes.
councillor Chu, and councillor Turner.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for yes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for no. So that's a tie for resolution 2.
So that means resolution 2, the status quo remains.
Unless
So as it stands, as that stands then, that means that the signalisation be incorporated in the cycleway, but the cycleway be dealt with in 26-28 financial years.
We could lapse standing orders and have a discussion to see if anyone wants to change their
Well,
mind.
no, the thing is, we can always change our mind in the annual.
It can be dealt with as part of the annual plan.
But not as direction from us.
Yep.
We have to change our minds if we change our.
Yeah. If we choose to pick it up differently, we can do that through the annual plan or long-term plan process. So that's the outcome of the item today. Staff, thank you very much indeed to staff for your help.
Councillor Keown voted against his lights.
And we'll move on to the
He wants them in
next
2028.
item.